Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. It's about 6:30 on a very chilly morning here in Copenhagen. We're about to take a very interesting train. I'm not just talking about the way it looks.
It's quite ugly.
Very ugly.
Very ugly.
This train takes a very unusual route. It goes over the sea on a ferry. So I've been intrigued by this routing for a while. I found out the other day though that they're closing it and they're rerouting it so it no longer goes on the ferry. So basically we've got about a month or so left to actually do this. So therefore I booked us some last minute flights to come and check it out whilst we still can. This train travels from Copenhagen in Denmark to Hamburg in Germany. This route is currently served by 3 trains a day departing every 4 hours and is operated by the Danish State Railways, or DSB.
It is run using one of these rather ugly trains. Just look at that horrid little face. It's almost like they're expecting to hit something and bounce them out the way. You have a cute bum.
Tickets for this journey cost just €30 for a one-way trip, which is a really good deal. However, there's no catering on board, so we picked up some breakfast before we went. 7-Eleven was the only place open at this time on a Sunday morning, so we picked up some pastries, and because we're British, we got a nice cup of tea.
After squeezing past our very lovely seatmates, it was time for us to get moving on our way through to Germany.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome in this Eurocity train bound for Hamburg via Rodby and Puttgarden. Should you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us when we are passing through the train. I wish you a nice, beautiful journey.
This route has existed in several forms since the late 1800s, and the routing has changed a few times since, but the principle has remained the same. The train starts in Copenhagen and travels to Rodby in Denmark, before crossing the Fehmarn Belt on the ferry, landing in Puttgarden, and then continuing on its way to Hamburg. Total journey time today, 4 hours 52 minutes, including a 45-minute ferry crossing, covering a distance of approximately 207 miles.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a few minutes we will arrive at Rodby Danish border station. After a short stop in Rodby, this train here will board the ferry.
Alright, so here we are, Rodby. I think that's how I pronounce it. Probably got about 10 minutes or so until the train actually goes on the ferry. I think we're running a little late. So yes, we should be on our way soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding the ferry, so please be ready to leave the train when it stops on the ferry and go to the upper decks.
It was a very unusual experience boarding the ferry on a train. You could hear the moment the train rolled onto the ferry with a very distinctive clunk.
But it was a very smooth operation. And before we knew it, we were actually on the ferry. You're not permitted to stay on the train during the crossing, and I'm not sure why you'd want to anyway. It's not a very interesting view. But the train eventually rolled to a stop and we disembarked. Denmark on our way to Germany. Yay! Bye bye country 19 and hello. I can't remember. We've been to Germany. I can't remember which number it is.
It was like number 12 or something.
So, why does this route exist in the first place? I mean, what's the point of loading this big heavy train onto this floating metal can? I mean, from a practical point of view, surely it's easier to get the train to the ferry, load the people onto the ferry, and then get a train at the other end. Well, as usual for this type of thing, the answer can be found way back in time. Here's the history bit. Concentrate. Train ferries exist all over the world, transporting cargo and passengers over water where bridges daren't not exist. The first example of a train ferry was in Scotland in 1833, transporting goods down the Forth and Clyde Canal. Another one was built to cross the Firth of Forth, because no one was yet brave enough to build this magnificent thing. The technology started popping up all over the place, but particularly here in Denmark, where around half of the population live on islands. 18 different routes have been served over the years, making it a train ferry spotter's dream. So, why were they so popular here? Time for a practical demonstration. So let's say you're a 19th century businessman and you want to sell your stuff to everywhere in the world, but there's a lot of places on islands that you can't reach. What you could do is take the train to the ferry, load your stuff onto that ferry. It's a bit windy, this is a bit difficult to do. Then you take that ferry across this river and load it into another train. This will work.
It's not working. This is not working.
Yeah, Fran, I think you're right. Okay, let's try this somewhere else.
On a quick side note, it's really cold and blowy and windy, and it's really cold.
Okay, what I was trying to say was that rather than taking each individual piece of cargo and putting that on the boat, it's actually a lot easier if you get rid of this train completely. Let's throw that one over there. And then, if you take the entire train at the other end onto the boat, take that across the sea, put it on the tracks here, it's actually a lot quicker, a lot simpler, and it saves a lot more money. And as with most things with railways, this all started with cargo, but eventually they started transporting passengers as well. Passengers on a train, on a boat, over the sea, at the other end, continuing on their way. And that is why train ferries exist. And here we are, just arriving into Germany.
We departed the ferry as a foot passenger. If you were a regular train passenger, you'd just get back on the train and continue on your way. But we had things we wanted to see here in Puttgarden.
As we were leaving the port, we witnessed the northbound train rolling onto the ferry on its journey up to Copenhagen.
So, we're in Germany after starting off in Denmark this morning.
That was an interesting experience.
That was fun.
Yeah.
We didn't really feel like we were going onto a ferry when we were boarding.
It's kind of like you're just going and going and going, and then suddenly,
Stop.
oh, there's a ferry.
Stop, everyone get off. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
It's
and
such
then we
a slick operation, isn't
so
it?
slick. And then when we got off, it was just the door closed and we went. There was no fuss, no mess. I enjoyed it.
Cool.
Really cold on the top of the ferry.
Oh, it was windy. The only reason that this route has lasted as long as it has is because the alternative isn't that much better. There's another route which goes around the Great Belt. I'll put a map on screen so you can see the route. And it's basically, it's longer and slower than taking this route via the ferry. However, they have just improved the tracks and trains can now run faster, so even though it's longer, it will be quicker. 4 hours 36 minutes if I remember right, which is about 20 minutes faster than this route. But things are about to get even faster. Starting very soon is a new project to build a combined road and rail tunnel under the Fehmarn Belt, where the crossing will take just 7 minutes by train instead of the current 45. And with planned improvements to the lines on the approach to the tunnel, the total journey time from Copenhagen to Hamburg will be reduced from the current 4 hours 52 minutes to just 2.5 hours. slashing the travel time almost in half. That means if you're in Hamburg and you want some road water, or if you live in Copenhagen and fancy a bit of currywurst, you'll be able to get hold of the genuine article a lot quicker than you can today. But you'll need to wait a while before you go on your spontaneous international sausage tasting trip. The Fehmarn Belt tunnel is expected to take 8 years to build, with an estimated completion date of 2028. At a cost of 4.7 billion euros, it will be Northern Europe's largest construction project. The tunnel will be built in segments in a factory on the shore. Each segment will be floated out and lowered into the seabed, where they'll be connected together to make the final tunnel. Finally, the tunnel will be covered in stones to protect it from the elements. This will make the current ferry redundant, and Denmark's final passenger ferry will no longer exist.
Pity though, because it's quite fun being on the ferry.
Yeah. Although this is going to be the last one in Denmark, there is one left in Europe.
Yeah? Where is that?
Italy. It goes from the mainland to Sicily. And it doesn't show any sign of closing anytime soon.
That is amazing! And Italy. I mean, who doesn't want to go to Italy? It's warm.
Yeah. Fancy a trip to Italy?
Yeah! Let's go to Italy. Okay, whoa. We need to finish this journey first. Ugly.
Alright, the train's here. Let's go to Hamburg. We've arrived in Hamburg.
It's a bit chilly.
It's a bit chilly. So sorry for the camera shaking, my hand's cold. Well, it's been a long day. Lovely trip.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Now we're going to go to a nice little place, do something before we go and fly home.
A nice little place. Okay, a nice little place.